got it. So good evening, everybody. Morning. I mean, it's nice evening here. It's afternoon. Been raining all day. Still raining. Very nice. Okay, so shall we start with the refuge and bodhicitta, please, Michael? I notice on the TV talk shows, not the talk shows like radio things. Anyway, they go like, so let's do the refuge and bodhicitta. To the sound guy, whatever. Anyway, let's start with the refuge and bodhicitta. Oh, I see. I can't see it. I think I have to do this. Yeah. Sangye Chetan Zoye Chanam La Chanjum Banda Tani Kya Suchi Taki Chin Zoye Sonam Ki Trola Penje Sangye Chumbara Jo. I go for refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Thanks, Yebu. We can read this. Just the Lamrim part. Essence encompassing all the Buddhas, originator of all the holy Dharma, scripture and realization, principle of all the Aryas intending virtue, in the glorious holy Gurus I take refuge. Please, Gurus, bless my mind to become Dharma, Dharma to become the path, and the path to be without obstacles. Until I achieve Buddhahood, please bless me to be like youthful Nosam and the Bodhisattva always crying, incorrectly following the virtuous friend with pure thought and action, seeing whatever is done is pure, and accomplishing whatever is said and advised. Please bless me to see that this greatly meaningful body with freedoms and richnesses is difficult to find and easily perishes, that actions and their results are so profound, and that the sufferings of the evil gone transmigratory beings are so difficult to bear. Therefore, please bless me to take refuge from the depths of my heart in the three rare sublime ones, to abandon negative karma and to accomplish virtue according to Dharma. In dependence upon that, even if I achieve the mere higher rebirth of a deva or human, I will still have to experience suffering endlessly in samsara because of not having abandoned and being under the control of the disturbing thought obscurations. Therefore, please bless me to reflect well upon the way of circling in samsara and to continuously follow day and night the path of the three types of precious trainings, the principal method for becoming free from samsara. In dependence upon that, even if I achieve mere liberation, since there is no sentient being of the six types who has not been my father or mother, please bless me to think I must fulfill their purpose and turn away from the lower happiness of nirvana. Then, please bless me to generate precious bodhicitta by equalizing and exchanging myself with others, and to follow the conduct of the conqueror's sons, the six paramitas, and so forth. Having trained my mind in the common path in that way, I will not be upset even if I have to experience the sufferings of samsara for a long time. However, please bless me to look at sentient beings with extraordinary, unbearable compassion and to enter the quick path of the Vajrayana teachings. Then please bless me to protect my vows and samayas more than my life, and to quickly accomplish the unified Vajradhara state in one brief lifetime of this degenerate time. So we'll stop there. Thanks. And so if we can, as usual, begin by generating as sincere an attitude of bodhicitta, the mind wishing to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, so that what we're doing during this period on our vows will be in order to achieve enlightenment for their sake of the other sentient beings. Yeah. So we finished last time talking about karma, chapter 11, in Lama Tsongkhapa's mid-length stages of the path, Lam Jingbo. And so actually, no, that wasn't. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? But there was something I wanted to say about karma. So actually, the previous chapter was more about the different types of suffering of cyclic existence, right? And these, wherever you're born in cyclic existence, the idea that either you're going to be experiencing something you would, without question, consider to be something really unpleasant, or there's a pause in that, but it's never going to last. So even as a human being, though there's so much suffering of the animals and so on that we don't experience, but still there is so much suffering we do experience, and we're not beyond suffering. Anyway, so then about karma. So anyway, something my teacher, Gintecho, often used to mention in the context of karma is that you learn that you have this idea, you learn about karma, you hear that if you do good things, then good things are going to happen. When you do bad things, then bad things are going to happen. So then what it seems to be saying is lead a good life, then good things should happen to you. And if you lead a bad life, a person leads a bad life, then bad things are going to happen to them. And yet you see, it's some people's experience, it might have been your experience. It's like you feel like you're doing your best, you're not harming anybody, you're just doing good, leading a good life, being kind to others and so on. But all sorts of bad things happen to you. Everything seems to go wrong. And then you see other people that spend their time, cheating people, deceiving, lying, stealing, and so on. And they seem to get rich and they seem to lead a comfortable life. So then it seems like, well, maybe this whole thing about karma is not true. But actually, the way it works is that you see that those difficulties you experience during this life, even though you've led a good life, they're not the result of doing good things in this life. They're the result of, your bad karma from previous lives. And so the leading a good life, doing good things in this life, isn't fruitless. It brings its good results. Sometimes it can happen in this very lifetime, but more likely in future lifetimes. And then if you instead complete opposite, like good things happening, even though you're leading a very corrupt lifestyle. So it's not like the good things happening is the result in terms of karma. It's not actually a result of that corrupt way of living. It's the result of good things that person has done in past lives, and sometime in the future they'll have to experience the result of the bad things they've done in this life. So that's quite important to bear in mind. There's that distinction. Okay. So then the next thing is, since in terms of the Four Noble Truths, you got the truth of suffering and then the origin of suffering. So the truth of suffering we've looked at in terms of the 8 kinds of suffering, 6 kinds of suffering, then just talked a little bit about the 3 types of suffering as well, and the specific types of problem that are experienced in each of the 6, the one would experience as each of the 6 types of sentient being, from the hell realms up to the god realms and so on. So now then, when it comes to the true origin, so that's talking about karma and the mental afflictions. Karma and the mental afflictions. So here's talking about mental afflictions. It talks a bit about karma as well in this part of the text, not in this chapter so much. But here's talking about the mental affliction, the klesha, mental affliction, yomon. And I think affliction is quite a good word, really, because a translation term, in other words, because yomon, apparently, according to His Holiness Dalai Lama, heard him mentioned several times, has the idea of, the very word has the idea of something that's something kind of quite unpleasant. And I might not have mentioned here, but I know Gijingan Dragpa, the amazing Lama who lives in San Francisco. So he was saying in old Tibetan, you would, well, what it comes down to is this word. When somebody's been on a long journey, then and you want to ask them, did you have a bad time? Was it difficult for you? This is the word you would use. So it's like to do with, anyway, something that afflicts you anyway. So it's something that afflicts you. What we call the mental afflictions, we're going to go through, there's a list of 10 that's mentioned. They afflict you. They make trouble for you. They cause suffering for you. They afflict you. Okay. So, according to this chapter, then, chapter 12, first of all, we're looking at how the mental afflictions arise, then how karma is accumulated or created under their control. Then, at the end of this life, how one dies, transmigrates, it says, chipor, anyway, yes, transmigrate, moving on to next life, and then how one takes rebirth. So it talks about all of that in these next few chapters. But here is called, the chapter is called Mental Afflictions, and that's what it's about. That's what's being dealt with here. So how the mental afflictions arise is what this is going to be talking about. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention, if I can find it now, there's one book. I don't know if I can really recommend a book that I haven't read, but it's a book that I'm pretty sure would be very good. There's a series of books that were put together in English, available in English, under the direction, and I think, at the suggestion of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. I'm not going to be able to find it, I don't think. Yeah, here we are. Good. So it's a series of books, and they're called, the name of the series is Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics. Sounds pretty heavy, doesn't it? There's seem to be like, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Maybe there's 4, and there might be another one coming up. But anyway, volume number 2 is about the mind. So I think it'd be interesting, because if you wanted a book on the mind in the Tibetan source, there's the one called, well, in English it's called Mind and Mental Factors. So it's about the mind. It's different. It's sort of about psychology in a way, but it's very good. It's definitely very good. It goes through different definitions of different mental factors. There's 51 of them: positive ones, destructive ones, neutral ones, and so on. But anyway, I think that my impression has been this one really goes into all kinds of discussions about different levels of mind, more coarse levels of mind, more subtle levels of mind, lots of, all together in one book. And it's actually quite a fat book. But I think it would be, I think it would be very good. Anybody who wants to find out about how the mind works. Yeah.
Sorry, what was the name of that book again, Steve? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I should be able to. Anyway, the book is called The Mind, Volume 2, The Mind, and it's in a series called Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics. I'll show it to you, but I think I might be able to put the link in the chat.
I'll look it up and try to find it in the chat. Okay.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, anyway, so how the mental afflictions arise. So this first bit here, it talks about, the relative, which one is most dangerous, karma or klesha, karma or the mental afflictions? Which one's worse? So it's a very interesting point it makes. Although karma and mental afflictions are necessary as causes that bring about psychic existence. So in other words, psychic existence, it means like being born again and again under the control of karma and mental afflictions, right? So you need both of them. So You wouldn't be born anywhere if you don't have the karma to be born there. And then what makes you create the karma to be born in cyclic existence is the mental afflictions. They're always going to be involved there. And even in the case of like being born as a human, so that's, you need good karma for that, but you still need the mental afflictions. Otherwise, our life would be a pure life, but it's not a pure life. We still have troubles, don't we? We still have problems. So where it's involved, I mean, this comes up more later, but where it's involved is like, this is much clearer when we go into the 12 links of dependent arising, the wheel of life. And then later on, for sure, you get quite a bit on this in the insight section, but it's like the foundation of everything is the one big mental affliction, which is usually called ignorance. So it means like not just misperceptions about the nature of reality, especially about oneself. It mentions that a little bit here. And then all of the other mental afflictions come from that, especially the mental afflictions that make us do destructive actions. But even if because of a positive mind, we create positive karma, like our compassion, loving kindness, and so on, helping others, then still, if it was just something positive, then you wouldn't be born as a human. It would be something that then you'd have nothing but something pure. But actually, the ignorance is there, even behind those positive states of mind. There's still a sense of like a concrete, solidly existing I that's independent of anything else. So it's still, it's the mental afflictions that are there that are making it possible, that are behind there, creating the creation of the karma that makes you be born, whether it's as human or God or animal or whatever. There's always ignorance. If the ignorance weren't there, then it would be a completely different story. So anyway, here's the point. Although both karma and mental afflictions are necessary as causes that establish psychic existence, bring about psychic existence, in other words, bring about birth in psychic existence without choice, the mental afflictions are primary. They're the main thing. And then he goes on to explain why very clearly. This is because if there are no mental afflictions, even though there is karma beyond counting accumulated previously, so if you can just imagine, just like it's just a mind exercise, right? Just imagine you had no mental afflictions at all, but you still got all of the karma from before. That karma would be like a rotten seed or burnt seeds that can't grow, or like any kind of seed there's no moisture, no warmth, no nutrition, nothing to make it grow. It won't grow. So in other words, no matter how much karma you might have, in other words, karmic imprints on your mind stream, if you had no mental afflictions, they couldn't do anything to you, and you would never create more causes for suffering, so everything would be okay. But if it was the other way around, you've got the mental afflictions, but no karma at all. Just suppose, like the slate is completely cleared, no good karma, no negative karma, no neutral karma, but you've got mental afflictions. Because of those mental afflictions, you'd immediately start creating karma. So that's quite interesting. So that's what this is saying. Anyway, since the cooperative conditions of a karma are absent, would be absent, the sprout of suffering, sprout growing from a seed, is not established, just as a sprout is not established from a seed that lacks humidity, soil, and so forth. I never like calling it sprout, but I guess there's no choice. As soon as it says sprout, I think of Brussels sprouts, which I can't stand. Okay, so then and because if the mental afflictions are present, so if you had the mental afflictions, then you got no karma, even without any previously accumulated karma, karma would immediately be accumulated anew, and future aggregates will be appropriated. In other words, you'd be born again. You'd be born again. And again. So that is how it is set forth in the commentary on the compendium of valid cognition. This is by Dharmakirti, dear Dharmakirti, Ramanavatika, great Indian master. So he says, for those who have passed beyond craving for existences, karma cannot impel. Anyway, what he's saying is, if you have no mental afflictions, karma cannot impel any more rebirths. No matter how much karma you might have, it couldn't make you take rebirth, because the cooperating factors have been exhausted. The cooperating factors would mainly be talking about, in the context of the 12 links. 2 of those links function to nourish the seed of karma previously accumulated, so that you're going to be born after you've died. So this happens around the time of death. They're going to cause you to be actually born somewhere in psychic existence. Then so he's making exactly the same point that Lama Tsongkhapa has just explained in more detail, because he goes on, if craving is present, they will occur, and they will recur. In other words, even if you had no karma, if you've got craving, the grasping, attachment, and so on, then the karma will be created, and then you'll be born again in cycling existence. Therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa says, so this is top of page 168, therefore it is crucial that you rely on the antidotes, find out the antidotes to the mental afflictions. And that depends on knowing the mental afflictions, which is why you should become conversant with them. So you need to get to know what the mental afflictions are. Then, based on that, you'll be able to get to understand the way that the antidotes to the mental afflictions work. The opponents, if you like. So, in other words, we've got 3 points. First of all, the actual identification of the mental afflictions, then the stages by which they arise, kind of the order in which they arise, and then he talks about the faults of the mental afflictions. Well, I thought we'd get through this whole chapter, but I'm not quite sure now. But let's see how we get on. We've got, first of all, the actual identification of mental afflictions. There's going to be 10. So when it says there's 10 points, it's because there's 10 mental afflictions. So, okay, so you often hear, I don't know, you probably heard about the 3, what do they call you want to sum. So the 3 poisonous mental afflictions. So the three main ones are ignorance, then grasping attachment. I'll explain why I want to call it grasping attachment in a moment, and anger. So those are the 3 main ones. All of the other ones are sort of like grow out of those. I don't know, would you say proliferate from them? Anyway, they grow out from those. All right. So Michael found the book. Good. Yeah, so then sometimes you hear about the 6 root afflictions, and then sometimes 10. So it'll become clear as we're going through them, but why they sometimes say 6 and sometimes they say 10 is because with the 6, the last one, if you go into it in detail, there's sort of 5 different mental afflictions that are sort of included within that one category, if you like. So that's why, since there are 5, then it's 5 plus 5 is 10. And sometimes they say 5 view and 5 non-view. View here means that they're the last 5 here, of these 10, they're all to do with like, they're kind of imply a kind of intelligence, but it's a sort of warped intelligence. So I mean, it's interesting actually, because there's this one word in Tibetan, sherab, and for the most part, it's translated as wisdom. But and but the thing is that sometimes this word wisdom, or the Tibetan word sherab, can be a bad thing. So then it kind of seems a bit strange to call it wisdom. So some people prefer to call it intelligence. So we'll see as we're going through this. Okay, anyway. So you got the first of these is desire. Okay, so he's got a desire. That's interesting. Most people call this one attachment. And so I don't know why he didn't want to call it attachment. I also wouldn't want to call it attachment, and there's a reason for that. Many texts, they do talk about attachment instead of desire, but dircha, attachment. So, you get into the habit of thinking, oh yeah, attachment is so bad, it does this and it does that and so on. But actually, if you look at, it's just words, I don't know, but anyway, if you look at, child psychology, they talk about the link, the bond of attachment is, I think, bond of attachment between the mother and the child, without which it's kind of like disaster, right? That you just, I mean, anyway, things go wrong when there isn't that bond of attachment. Things go wrong, and I don't know in detail. I don't know exactly how they talk about it in psychology. I read about it a bit, but it's a bit like, yeah, there's something wrong. If it seems to be, it seems like it needs to come mostly from the side of the mother. And I mean, yeah, we've all seen it, the way that the mothers are holding up the baby and then making all these cooing noises, and the baby's gurgling away and grinning and laughing and all that. That's what's going on, isn't it? The this bond of attachment. And it's like that's the way the baby's life, that's the way our life started out. And starting from there, it's like, it's how you get to become I don't know, like a complete human being, a whole human being. And if you don't have that, then all sorts of things can go wrong, can't they? And I think it's pretty well documented. So it seems like attachment isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Seems like it can be very important. So I tend to think, I mean, sometimes out of habit, I might find myself also saying attachment, but really it's grasping attachment, because as we will discover from this description here, and not just from this description here, but just, like if you think about it, you begin to see that when it says in these teachings that, so here he says desire, some people say attachment and so on, it's talking about a kind of selfish, we could even maybe say selfish attachment, grasping attachment, the kind of attachment that even a mother could have to the child, parents to their children, where it's like you don't want to let them go off and do your thing because you want them to be near you because you're so attached to them. So you actually get in the way of their growth. So it could be a little bit of ignorance, but mainly it would be a kind of like, it's a kind of selfishness, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure we've all noticed that one thing about parents, especially mothers. I mean, I noticed it with my own mum. You're never quite sure, because she's never, ever going to say that anything that you're doing is going to make things difficult. It's like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay by myself. Like, kind of like 90s, maybe even older than that. I mean, I can't imagine ever saying, no, you can't go away. I need you here. Just can't do it. So this, so that's what, and that can be a little bit infuriating, but that's the kind of when the attachment is working in a positive way, right? But when it's working in a destructive way, so destructive attachment is where there's the grasping and there's the kind of like selfishness, and you're well, when you're putting yourself first before the other person, and not necessarily, not just of course with parents and their children, but amongst friends, couples, it's like putting yourself first, that kind of attachment. That would be the main thing, I think. The main thing. So anyway, we'll leave it as he says for now. That's my thoughts about it. So the first of these, desire. Okay. So it observes an attractive, pleasant, external or internal object. So external objects. And when it says object, it certainly includes people. So usually internal object. It could be like something internal relative to yourself, so like your parts of your body and so on, and is subsequently attached to it. So in a way that doesn't explain much, does it? It's like, what does it mean to be? What is it? What's attached? Well, of course, he says attached to it anyway. But what's desire? It means to be attached to something. So what does that mean? It's like clinging to it, grasping. Like I've got to have this. I want this kind of thing. So, but also, so how would that work with, like your own body? Maybe looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, I'm just so beautiful. How could anybody resist me? That kind of thing. Attachment, yeah. Anyway, to the way you look and all that. Attachment to your things, obviously. So external things, it would be like your shoes. Some people make do with just one pair of shoes, but many of us, there's the shoes for this, and there's the shoes for walking in, there's the shoes for running in, there's the shoes for going out in, there's the shoes for just lounging around in the garden. I mean, there's the boots for when it's getting cold. And, like just, maybe you could have 50 pairs of shoes and like, oh no, I can't give one of those away. I can't give any of them away. Couldn't possibly give them away. So that's attachment, isn't it? Anyway, so then this very good illustration, as he says, of how attachment works, what attachment is like. So just as oil that has penetrated in cloth is hard to remove, and I think anybody that's tried to clean oil off of clothes, they know, it's just once it's on there, it's just practically impossible to get out, actually. It's also difficult to separate desire from its object. So anyway, when you're attached to something, it's so difficult to pull out of that. Whether it's a person, whether it's a thing. I mean, of course, like, so most of us, well, anyway, I don't know, most anyway, there's a lot of people in the West who really are overweight. And sometimes I think to myself, because my teacher was a little bit, he was quite portly, quite stout. And he used to go to when he used to go to the doctor, not often they would say, it'd be good to lose weight. And this happened a few times. And one time he said, uh, he was told, it'd be good if you could lose weight. He says, have you got medicine for losing weight? Because it's not easy, It's not easy. Actually, I think maybe they do have medicine for losing weight now, but anyway. So the thing is, one of the main reasons why it's difficult to lose weight, get down to a healthy weight, is just like the amount of food. You're just in the habit of eating a certain amount of food and then certain types of food. Yeah, potatoes, and especially you get this in Copan. You get in one meal you get potato, pasta, and rice. Potato, pasta, and rice. Tentuk is really nice. It's very nice actually. So this is like they make the fresh noodles. They sort of, anyway, the main way to do it, the traditional way to do it is you sort of like make the fresh dough, and then you sort of like make it a bit sort of long, stretch it out, and then throw bits into the boiling water. Very nice. And so in Nepal, of course, they're going to put potato in it as well, and then also white can be rice as a side or something like that. But anyway, and bread, of course. Bread. I mean, it's just terrible. Yeah, but anyway, so and giving up cakes. We say I've got a sweet tooth, right? I have a sweet tooth. I definitely got a sweet tooth. I think actually all my teeth are probably sweet. I have sweet teeth. So yeah, it's very difficult to give up those things. And so that's, I think for myself, that's probably the main reason for not being able to lose weight. So yeah, difficult to just say no, because your mind is kind of like just absorbed into it. Your mind is attached to it, it absorbs into it, can't let go, can't change. It's very difficult to change. So anyway, yeah, then it just gets it gets stronger and stronger. You cling to it, and you get the attachment becomes stronger and stronger. And one thing that Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't mention here, and but all these mental afflictions, I think you'll find all of them, especially the first five. Well, especially like attachment, anger, pride. Doesn't mention jealousy separately, but anyway, jealousy is a big one. If you don't do something about it, it'll get stronger and stronger and stronger until you can't do anything about it, and it'll drive you crazy. And I don't just mean like that I don't say that lightly. I mean, I think it's not too difficult to imagine how you could actually become insane with the grasping, with the anger, with the hatred, with the jealousy, and so on. So you have to be very careful. But anyway, yeah, attachment. And also so here he doesn't actually, he's describing it, not exactly defining it. I don't know if there's that much of a difference, but in the book that I mentioned that has been around for a long time, which is called, I'm pretty sure, Mind and Mental Factors, the one that is based on teachings by Geshe Rabten. You know that one, Michael? You might know that one as well. You put that up. That's very good, actually. It's got one section about, which you could call it like epistemology, but anyway, it's to do with the way that the mind knows things, the difference between conceptual mind and non-conceptual minds, and so on. And then the other part goes into the mental factors, which is more to do with the what do you call it, the psychology, let's say. So yeah, so there, each of the mental factors, including all of these, is quite precisely defined. But even there, I what I don't you can work out for yourself, but I don't know if I've really seen it mentioned, is you see, obviously the root, in the sense of like the one from which all the other ones come, is ignorance. So whether that's clear to you or not yet, anyway, that's what they say. Ignorance in the sense of like not understanding the true nature of reality. And then the other thing is selfishness. So you think about, especially these first five, or the ones they call non-view, that are not to do with a sort of like a perverted intelligence. you just imagine how any of these could operate if you didn't have selfishness. If you had no selfishness, if there was no selfishness there. That's worth thinking about. You know, to read through these and then think, you recognize the descriptions and you know that, you can see that you have it, and you think to yourself, if I wasn't selfish, would any of these be possible? Or at least, can I imagine that the more selfish I am, the more strongly these are going to arise. The less selfish I am, the less strongly they're going to arise. Or let's put it this way, instead of selfishness, like a big ego, maybe idea we can all relate to. Somebody who's self-centered, but not just other people, like oneself. The more you're feeling selfish, self-centered, more you have a sense of me being so important, the more likely these are going to arise, and not just arise, but arise in a more powerful way. So then the second one, anger. So it says this is a hostile attitude. It's an unruly mind. So he says unruly. So it's like a harsh mind. It's a mind which is harsh. And upon observing, so up there it talked about observing as well. Observes an attractive, pleasant object. So in other words, when it says observing an attractive object in the one on desire, it means it's talking about the thing that you're attached to, the thing that your desire is focused on, what it is that you desire, what it is that you're clinging to, grasping at. Okay, so like that here also it says observing a basis of suffering such as sentient beings. In other words, we're talking about anger is something that can be towards sentient beings, right? So how would it arise towards sentient beings? Like they're playing their music too loud, they're using one of those leaf blowers early on a Sunday morning, all sorts of things, right? All sorts of possible things. Sentient beings, neighbors dog barking. So then suffering. So interesting, isn't it? So these are things to think about anyway. Suffering, pain, getting angry at the pain is like your knee hurts, so you get angry with your knee, or you get angry with the pain in the knee, or what? And then weapons. So the anger towards the weapon that you're being attacked with. That's an interesting idea, isn't it? And then thorns, for example, thorns that are scratching you, maybe. I can't quite relate to that, but in a way I can, because there's this story that His Holiness the Dalai Lama tells, probably when he's talking about anger and how foolish one can become sometimes under the control of anger. He talks about one of his assistants, one of his, I don't know, staff, who's kind of like got his head under the, what do you call it? Do you call it the bonnet of a car? Huh?
Hood of a car.
Hood.
Huh?
The
We call it
hood.
the hood.
The hood. Okay, yeah, the hood. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So anyway, he's got his head under the hood of the car, fixing something inside the engine. And then he kind of like goes to stand up and he hits his head against the hood. And he's so annoyed by this that he hits his head against it again, like out of anger towards the hood for hurting his head. So that kind of thing, Yeah. Yeah, anyway. And so forth. So then being angry towards any of those things wants to harm it, wants to harm it. Feeling like, I really want to harm this thing. I want to destroy it. I want to hit it. I want to whatever. So then pride. This is also interesting because generally speaking, they always talk about pride as being something that's destructive. And yet in the Bodhicitta, there's one section you might not have noticed, you see, because there's one section where Shantideva talks about the need for pride, but he's talking about a different kind of pride than this one. But he's using the same word, but the translator uses a completely different word. I can't remember what the word is. So, but anyway, so Shantideva talks about pride, and I think that we can all relate to this. You know, like if we talk about taking pride in your work, do you really think that's pride? You know, you could take pride in your. I think for most of us, if we talk about taking pride in one's work, it means having a certain oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody who takes pride in work is somebody who wants to do their job properly, right? That's what I'm talking about. You can be proud of yourself in this sense, having, because it says pride is a puffed up mind, like you can, think about how you're better than everybody else at doing this particular job and feeling really full of yourself and arrogant and looking down on everybody else. Of course, that can happen, but taking pride in your work, pride in your appearance, even also just wanting to look good and not necessarily wanting to look good out of selfish reasons, but wanting to look good because taking other people's feelings into account, not wanting to look a complete mess and dirty and disheveled and so on. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think pride in, so here's another word then, pride, that, you have to keep in mind that sometimes that when it's talking about pride being one of them, the root, the 10 main afflictions, 10 root afflictions, it's the puffed up kind of pride where you think you're better than everybody else. So pride is a puffed up mind based on the view of the transitory collection. So that's the view of transitory collection is coming up later. But anyway, the view of the transitory collection is a mind thinking, I. There's like there is some kind of solid, concretely, independently existing I. So in other words, there is this strong sense of an I there that's so much better than everybody else. This is really what it's getting at. So it observes the external or internal level or qualities, it says. So what this means is feeling proud about your position being higher than other people, your actual, maybe in your job, having a senior position in society, having some kind of elevated position. And then qualities, so here again, so sangin. Well, anyway, maybe being, maybe your appearance, your looks, feeling like superior to others just because, I don't know, you've got a very attractive appearance, that kind of thing. It could be like that. Or maybe even the quality of the clothes that you wear, kind of thing. Expensive clothes, very nice looking clothes. Okay, and then engages in them with an aspect of superiority. So this is the main point. For whatever reason, thinking I'm better than others. Usually it's in relation to others, right? You're thinking other people, they're not as good as me. I'm better than they are. Yeah. So anyway, I can remember one old friend talking about how even a dung beetle is proud of its lump of dung. Quite interesting, actually, because I don't know if they're proud. Well, maybe they are. I don't know, because it's like, I mean, apparently the bigger the piece of dung, the more likely they are to attract a partner. So that means that their prospective partner, I guess it's the lady dung beetles, they're impressed by a big piece of dung. Now, there could be good reasons for that, like, what do you call it? In terms of evolution and so on, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to eat the dung or they're going to lay their eggs in the dung. I'm not quite sure. I never went into that in enough detail, but yeah, it's like, it's amazing, isn't it? Because like, I think it's one of these nature programs, so that there's a particular kind of monkey when it's eating this particular kind of fruit, then the dung, comes out very nice and loose, and then they grab hold of a piece of it, and then they go tumbling down the tree. I mean, like, from a long way up, they go tumbling down and they land, and then they start rolling it towards wherever I know their home. And yeah, it's kind of dung beetles. So anyway, yeah, you can be proud of anything. And if you think about it, I mean, of course, it's always easy to see other people's faults, right? But one can be proud of the most ridiculous thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, you can be proud of your skills with the football. I mean, I don't want to put down footballers and so on. I think all this kind of thing is really important. It's something that human beings need. Human beings need culture, including football, and I think including football, right? But you can also become quite arrogant. I mean, it's like we need the arts, but also, like, actors can be arrogant. I mean, we need them, and we need what they do, because I think, a life without culture, bunching all that together under culture, is, I think, human beings just can't be happy. We need all that, but still, it's just football. Nothing to be proud of. I'm proud of, like, in the positive sense, but in the negative sense, I'm better than everybody else because I know. Oh, he doesn't know how to play football. I know how to play football. Anyway, anyways, they're not the only ones, though, right? We can be proud of also kind of pretty stupid things. So pride, anyway. Then ignorance. So here, ignorance is not the way it's explained in the Prasangika system. So if you've had teachings on the middle way, the root of psychic existence and so on, then ignorance is, they talk about it a different way. And in fact, Lama Tsongkhapa was going to explain that further down. So ignorance is afflicted not knowing. And I think the point of saying afflicted not knowing is because there are certain types of not knowing which are not particularly problematic, right? I mean, I don't know when the next train is from Waterloo or Grand Central or whatever, I don't know. I don't know when the next flight to Singapore is from San Francisco. But big deal, it's not really a problem, is it? So and yet it's a kind of ignorance. Okay, so this is an afflicted one. Afflicted, in other words, one that's going to cause you trouble. So ignorance is an afflicted non-knowing, owing to a mind that is unclear with regard to the nature of the four truths, actions and their effects, in other words, karma and its results, and the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So, yeah, so it's like a darkness in the mind. When you think of, if you were to think about them, you couldn't understand them because there's this darkness in your mind, and that's just ignorance. It means just not really knowing about. Put it this way: when when you don't know about the Four Noble Truths, or even certain aspects of the Four Noble Truths, likewise karma and the mental afflictions and the three jewels. Number one, that's problematic because it's, it helps you in your path if you know about these things. And you notice that your not knowing them is accompanied by a sort of unclarity in the mind, almost like a darkness in the mind, right? So that's what the ignorance is. So ignorance is simply not knowing about certain important truths. Then doubt. Okay, so the fifth one, doubt. Doubt is to observe those same three objects, so the four truths, karma, and the three jewels, the refuge, and thinking, do they exist or do they not exist? Are they certain way or are they not? So anyway, is it or isn't it? Are there or aren't there? In other words, so the four truths. You see, anyway, one important thing is when it comes to doubt, there are three types. One, so they're all characterized by not being sure. And one is like where you're thinking, not quite sure, but probably there's no future lives, for example. You haven't made up your mind, but so you're not sure, but you're thinking you're tending towards the an incorrect conclusion. Then the other one is where you're thinking, I'm not 100% sure, but probably there are. So that would be on the positive side. Then there's one where they call balanced doubt, where you're like, maybe, maybe not. I'm really not sure. Not really veering towards one side or the other. So this is talking about when it says, do they exist or do they not exist? So it seems like it's talking about the balanced doubt, but it would include also the one where you're veering towards an incorrect conclusion, because when you're thinking probably there are, I mean, is that, think about it, do you think that would be a mental affliction or not? In some ways, it's all part of the process of getting towards an understanding of a thing that in the beginning you're not sure, right? Anyway, that's something to think about. So anyway, doubt, not being sure about those things. Then you got the next five. Maybe we'll take a few minutes break to think about these things and then see how far we can get with the rest, with the next five. Now, number 6, the view of the transitory collection. Eventually, you have to come across this, and it's something that's quite important to understand. The view of the transitory collection. So let's just look at the word. As soon as you see the word view, you know that you're looking at some kind of the word view is used for the to imply correct view as well. But there are also some. So view is, as soon as you see view, we're looking at some kind of intelligence, some kind of view about, or view of the how things really are, how things are. Mainly, it's going to be on the level of ultimate reality, but it can include other things. It's just so it can in general mean like how you think things are, right? Even like permanent, impermanent, existing from its own side, not existing from its own side, and so on. Is everything the nature of the mind or not? I think are there things that are independent of the mind or not? That kind of thing. So it's an intelligence in that sense. So sort of numja. Yeah, anyway, I can't think of a better word, some kind of intelligence. Thinking kind of thing. Then when it says transitory collection, what it means is that we're talking about the kind of view that comes up in relation to the transitory collection. And the transitory collection refers to the 5 aggregates. So this term is used in order to make a point. In fact, it's to make 2 points. One is that the 5 aggregates are impermanent. In fact, not just impermanent, but like subject to moment by moment change. They never remain static, even for a moment. When you really go into this, is quite interesting actually, because like even according to some Buddhist philosophical systems, like the Vaibhashikas, it seems like their take on things is that just like on a sort of coarse, in other words, observable level, we can see how things go through a period where they're kind of like growing. Like for example, I don't know, like a plant growing, a flower growing. So, you've got the bulb and you got the seed or the bulb in the ground, gradually something poking out from the ground. And so it's going through that period which we call growing. So they would call that the period of production. Then for whether it's a day or a few days, the flower is there and it's still very beautiful and it hasn't started to wilt yet. Then at a certain point, you notice that it's so that's its period of remaining stability in a sense. Then it starts wilting and it's maybe gradually, I don't know, maybe falling down and maybe you would deadhead it or whatever. But anyway, so there's that period after it's gone through its main period where it's the flower is there and it hasn't wilted yet and so on. So their idea is that even on a very subtle level, on the most subtle of change, where you can think about things, what we would normally call moment by moment, they have this idea that there's one moment where the thing is being produced, then one moment it remains, and one moment where it's perishing. That's their take on impermanence. But the higher systems of philosophy in Buddhism say that middle one, the moment remaining, is just not there, because that would imply that for a moment it's static, and things are not static even for a moment. Things are constantly changing, constantly changing. Never even a moment, not even a split second where they remain static and unchanging. So the aggregates, our body and mind aggregates are like that, changing moment by moment and not remaining static even for a split second, not even for the shortest moment. And then collection, so that, you know, in a sense, even the name of this type of view is telling us that the aggregates are impermanent, changing moment by moment. And then collection, because it means there's not just this one thing, but there are actually several things. So it's a collection of 5 aggregates, even a collection of the body and mind, you know, if you just think simply in terms of body and mind. So what is it? So that's what it's called. What is it? It's an afflicted intelligence. So you see, understandably, he's not using the word wisdom, even though the word is the same. The word for intelligence and wisdom is the same, sherab. It's an afflicted intelligence. So it's an intelligence, but it's also something that afflicts you. So let's call it afflicted intelligence. It causes you problems. So that observes the appropriated aggregates. So we've seen that before. Your body and mind aggregates, which have been taken, which you've taken under the control of the karma, the mental fictions, and views them as a self or belonging to a self. So, yeah, anyways, so it views them as actually, in the case of the transliteration, it's mainly when it says as a self, it means it's a very strong feeling of an I. So in a way that I won't try to explain too much right now, but basically it's like this. Somehow it's easier to see in reference to somebody else. You see somebody. If we talk about seeing somebody, we don't usually make this distinction. You say, oh yeah, I saw so-and-so. Actually, what you see is their body. You don't see their mind. You see their body. So you're seeing and it could be like their arms and legs and most of the body covered in clothes and so on, but you know, there's the face. So that's what's appearing to you. And then through those, so in other words, the aggregates are appearing to you. Through their aggregates appearing to you, in other words, depending upon the appearance of their aggregates to you, the person appears. It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, you say, I saw so-and-so. You never say, oh, I saw so-and-so's body today. Would you? You say, I saw that person. So anyway, depending upon the appearance of the aggregates, there is an appearance of a person there. And it's like that with ourselves also, with respect to ourselves. And it's not just other people, with respect to ourselves. Through the appearance to our minds of our aggregates, and it doesn't have to be all 5 aggregates at once, just like in the case of like a person, you know, you hear a person's voice and you'll say, oh, it's so-and-so John or Joan or whoever, right? You hear the voice, you think it's that such and such a person. What's appearing to you is the aggregates of the person. That voice is part of their aggregates, part of their body and mind, you know, aggregates. So anyway, so it's like that for with regard to ourselves. And to put it on a very simple level, I think, which I find, you know, helpful anyway. It's like when, yeah. So when we think I'm happy, that thought, I'm happy, arises depending upon our mind being happy. So what it implies when we say I'm happy, what that implies is that there's been an appearance of a happy mind, and based on that appearance of a happy mind, there was the appearance of an I that's happy, right? So it's like that, I'm sick is something that appears to us depending upon the appearance of our body being sick. So if you really look into it, that seems to be how it works. Okay, so let's look at this again. The view of the transitory collection is an afflicted intelligence that observes the appropriated aggregates and views them as a self or belonging to a self. So sometimes we'll think I'm sick, I'm happy, and so on. But then sometimes you might look at your hand and think, mine, this is mine, right? This is my hand. So in either case, thinking there's an I that somehow exists solidly, independently, or mine, which exists, it's inherently mine. It's mine from its own side. So it belongs to an I that exists from its own side. And then he says, so if you, maybe this is all old stuff for you, maybe not. But anyway, if you get all of this straight away, that would be amazing. It's just a question of like hearing it and then thinking about it and reading about it and hearing again and again, and gradually, hopefully, it gets clearer and clearer. So here, transitory means impermanent, and collection means multiple. So the object it views, namely the aggregates, is a mere impermanent and manifold phenomenon. It's a collection, and it's transitory. It's given the name view of the transitory collection to indicate that there is no permanent, in other words, static or unitary person, a person that's not made up of parts. That means unitary. Then the next ones, I think we can go through quite easily. So number 7, the view holding an extreme. So what this, generally speaking, the view holding extreme means thinking which something which does exist, thinking it doesn't exist, and the other way around also, thinking that something that doesn't exist does exist. And the main, like in relation to the 3 things that it was talking about before, like thinking that there are no 4 truths, there's no karma, there's no Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and so on. So what does it say? The view holding to an extreme is an afflicted intelligence that observes the self as it is, the self apprehended by the view of the transitory collection. So, this, the view of the transitory collection is thinking there's this I, solidly existing I, and thinking that such an I is either permanent and eternal, so it's going to like go on forever, or that it's annihilated. In other words, it won't, after this life, it won't go on, right? But anyway, yeah, okay. So that's the basic idea anyway. When we talk about extreme, it means the extreme of existence, where you're thinking which doesn't exist inherently, you're thinking it does exist inherently. Then something which actually does exist, thinking it totally doesn't exist at all. Maybe you think, oh, if I don't exist inherently, that must mean I don't exist at all. So that would be another extreme. The one extreme is thinking things do exist, but they exist truly. The other extreme is where you think, since they don't exist truly, they don't exist at all. Okay, Sometimes they're called the eternalist extreme, and the the nihilist extreme. Okay, then the third one, sorry, the next one, which is the eighth one. Okay, so 6, 7, 8. That's all right, isn't it? Yeah. The view holding a bad view to be best. So what this means is there's one which we haven't come up. I think it's actually good to do this in a different order, but anyway, we'll follow the order that Lama Tsongkhapa uses. So what this means is there are 3 types of mistaken view. And so the view holding a bad view to be best is one that thinks of those and thinks, this is great, this is really good. The view holding a bad view to be best is an afflicted intelligence, just like before, that observes any of these 3, the view of the transitory collection, so that was number 6, the view holding extreme, so that was number 7, or a wrong view, which is actually the last one. So and then we'll see what the wrong view is later. So thinks of any of those as being like the best. And likewise, the aggregates of the person also being like the best, like fantastic kind of thing. Then the next one, number 9, view holding ethics and ascetic practices to be best. So what this is talking about is something which isn't really morality, but thinking it's morality and practicing accordingly. And then when it talks about the what's the other one? Ascetic practices. So anyway, the morality is like sort of like in the mind, thinking this is right and this is wrong kind of thing. And then the ascetic practices means various practices that you engage in order to achieve liberation and enlightenment. You think it's going to lead to liberation and enlightenment, but it doesn't. Okay, when I say it's in the mind, what I mean is primarily morality or ethics, as he calls it, is an attitude of guarding against destructive actions. So let's read the whole thing. The view holding ethics and ascetic practices to be the best is an afflicted intelligence that observes ethics, supposed to be anyway, that observes ethics of giving up immorality or corrupt morality, and ascetic practices that set a certain dress code, manners, and bodily or verbal comportment, as well as the aggregates through which the views arise, and views them as purifying bad actions, liberating from mental afflictions, and releasing one from psychic existence. So I don't know, like with morality, I would think, maybe things like it's okay to kill and steal if you're really hard up. It's okay to lie for the sake of your friends and family, like that kind of thing. So that would be like a warped kind of morality. And the kind of example that they give for the ascetic practices, which really aren't, they're aimed at achieving liberation, but they can't lead to liberation, would be thinking that simply, like washing yourself in the river Ganges, actually, which of course is a Hindu view, but just doing that is going to lead you to liberation. And there's Mengatemba. Anyway, like just standing on one leg. There are people that do that, just standing on one leg. That's going to lead to liberation. And there's some other things anyway, just strange ideas about, if you do this, then that's going to lead to liberation. Maybe what Angulimala was taught, if you kill 1,000 people and make a rosary out of their thumbs, then that's it. Liberation. You'll be completely finished with psychic existence. So those are, so anyway, mistaken morality, mistaken ascetic practices for achieving liberation. So that's the 9th one. And then wrong view is an afflicted intelligence that is a denial, saying that there are no past and future lives, no karma results, none of those exist. Or it's a so that's denial, thinking something that does exist doesn't exist, and something which doesn't exist does exist. So that would be, they call superimposition. So that's where you think that there is an Ishvara. This is actually, so I mean, Ishvara is the Hindu god that thinks he created the world. So that would be an example of wrong view, according to Buddhism, not according to other religions, but anyway, according to Buddhism, that there is a fundamental nature. So that's also a Hindu view, the Tso Chitso, what you got, sort of like, fundamental universal principle, and the like as the cause of sentient beings. Anyway, so thinking that there is somebody that created us or something that created us, whereas actually, we have this continuity that goes back without any beginning. Nobody made us. So I know what that was like. Maybe those last ones are a bit boring. Ones about view and so on. But yeah, anyway, I think I mean, we could try to go into these more, but that's about how much Lama Tsongkhapa goes into them, and well, maybe I will have a look and see if there's some way of making these clearer. But anyway, so the view of the transitory collection, where are we? Okay, view of transitory collection is the thought of an inherently existing I and mine. View holding extreme is thinking that things are either truly existent when they're not, or that they exist but they truly exist, or they don't exist at all because they're not truly existent. So those two extremes. The view holding view to be best is thinking that those previous two, and then the last one, which is the wrong view, is really great. Then the 9th one, so that's thinking that what is actually like a warped kind of or corrupt kind of morality is actually morality, and there are certain ascetic practices like standing on one leg, or I can't think of any that we would come across these days, but anyway, um swimming in the Ganges and so on, that's going to lead to liberation. And then the wrong view is denial of what's a denial of the existence of things that do very important, not just denial of saying that there is I think even like thinking that the world is flat, it wouldn't come under this heading. That the earth is flat, it wouldn't come under this heading. Even thinking that the sun goes around the earth, I don't think it would come under this heading. Those are things that are no big deal, but things which are really very important, thinking they don't exist, and then things which actually completely untrue, thinking that they are the truth, like that there is a creator God and so on. Okay, so that's those last 5. Okay, so then just to finish off this section. So what he says is, so these are the mental fictions as identified from the perspective that is common to both the high and lower tenet systems. So this is something more or less everybody, all the different philosophical systems within Buddhism, from Vaibhashika up to Madhyamika, Prasangika, they would all accept, but the Prasangikas would change things a little bit. There's some significantly, but also a little bit. So basically, when if you want to learn about the way that mind works, then for the most part, you look at texts that come from the Sautrantika system. And so when I was talking about that book, Mind and Mental Factors, that's all written according to the Sautrantika system, but it works. There are just certain things, minor things that need to be adjusted to, to bring it in line completely with the Prasangika understanding. Okay, so let's stop there then. Okay. So if we dedicate, maybe just a few short dedication prayers. Oh yeah, of course. I keep forgetting. So you've actually put it up, but I can't see it. Now I can. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Due to the past, present, and future merits collected by me, and all the merits of the three types collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings of the six realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization, especially the Land of Medicine Buddha. May it be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me and all those for whom I have promised to pray and all those whose names have been given to me. May it be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. The incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond, victorious ones of the three times, in order to have good conduct. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side, to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated, may I abide in samsara to help them, even though I achieve highest enlightenment. By merely seeing, hearing, thinking about, or remembering me, as well as by touching me or talking to me, may also suffering instantly be pacified, and may there be happiness forever. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, or the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for others living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay. So, see you all next week, I hope. Bye.